Okay, this podcast is going to talk about system backup and recovery. If you have a system that is running important services and has important data on it, then you want to make sure that that data never disappears. So, a couple things about backup and recovery. You need to have a good backup. You need to test recovering from it to make sure that it works. And you probably need to store a backup off-site. So if your building gets condemned, then your backup would be condemned as well, and you wouldn't be able to access that to restore your data. So make backups, test them, and also off-site storage is a good thing. There are lots of different ways you can back things up. There's a built-in Linux dump command. It says ext3 file system, but I did a little Googling around, and apparently it should still work for ext4. The opposite of dump is restore. You can restore files or partitions from a backup. We're not really going to go into how those work in great detail, and we're not really going to exercise those. There are other options for backup. Here's 10 outstanding Linux backup utilities, a link I found. I'll post the link in D2L. But it says FW Backups is a good one. Bacala, rsync. There's lots of options out there. These are some options. I don't know if they're all free. There's also options from the big boy. Here's an IBM backup and recovery software solution. Tivoli Storage Manager. We use that at a job I had for backup and recovery. So there's a lot of different ways you can do things. I'm going to show you a simple way that you can do something very simple to create a backup using find and tar. So I like backing things up this way. I'm not recommending this for you. I'm not saying this is the best way to doing it. I'm not saying there's not other better ways to do it. This is just the way I like to do it. I like to do it this way. Well, first let me show you a couple things. There's a find command that you can use. Basically, this find command says essentially show me everything that has been modified in the last 21 days. So 21 days probably isn't enough. We installed our system. I installed my system on like March 6th. So that was about 30 days ago. So this command says show me any files in the etc directory that have changed in the last 30 days. So let's look at that. So, password files, this is config directory, this named file has changed, httpd.conf is there now, the shadow file has changed, the password file has changed. Some of these things have changed. So these are all the files that have changed since the system was installed. Now let's look at all the files in the etc directory. That's all the files in the etc directory. I know that wasn't real useful, so I did a couple other commands. Here is a count of all the files in the etc directory, 1090. Here's a count of files that have changed in the etc directory, 100. So the question becomes, what do I really need to back up for me, right? There's 1090 files, only 100 of them have changed since I installed. So the question becomes, what do I really need to back up? Do I really want to back up the default system files that came from the install? Or do I just want to back up what changed? Because I tell you what, if I have a failure, I'm probably just going to reinstall and then restore my files. And the method I'm going to show you will allow you to do that. We're just going to do it for etc. There are some problems with this method that you might run into if you want to do it for the whole system. So if you want to do it for the whole system, you might say, oh, hey, I'm just going to do it for slash. I'm going to do it for everything. Well, the problem with this is now you're getting the proc file system, right? You don't really care about backing up the proc file system, so you probably want to ignore the proc file system. Lots of proc files that you're not going to want to back up, lots of stuff that doesn't matter. That you're not going to want. There's also a bunch of user lib things that got installed. Oh, this is forever. So yeah, so we won't do that. If you look at the user directory, right, there's a bunch of library files that got installed when we installed the compiler and some other stuff. We probably don't need those. So you probably want to go through here and see what you want to back up. You may want to run multiple find commands to back things up. In fact, I'll do that. I'm going to do multiple find commands to back things up. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to do it for etc. I'm going to go back up till I find my command so I get the syntax right. I'm going to do find for etc. There we go. Find for etc. I'm going to find files in /etc. God, have I said that like 6 times? that are older than 30 days, that have been modified in the last 30 days. Then I'm going to specify this exec command, and I'm going to exec the tar command. This R means append it to the archive, right? I'm going to call it Etsy backup, 4/04/08/14. I know what today is, but today's not the 8th. Pretend like it is. So this is going to find the files that have changed, and for each one of those files, it's going to add it to an archive. So I'm going to do that. So now if I look at my archive, TVF Etsy backup, there I have all the files that have actually changed since the system was installed. So now in theory, if I had a failure, I could just restore the files after I reinstall the system, and then my system will be back and up and running. You may have noticed these zeros. The problem here is that find was following symbolic links, so there's a way to tell it not to. -P, so let's try that. So first I want to remove this file. If I don't remove this file before I run it again, it's just going to append all the files to that file, and that's not what I want. I want to move. So let's see what this does. -P. Unknown predicates. So let's read the man page again. Put it in the wrong place. So now I'll run this find command, and hopefully this time it ignored symbolic links. So there we go. Now, nope, it didn't ignore symbolic links. Oh well, I'm not gonna worry too much about that right now. Maybe later I'll figure it out if I get around to it. But anyway, so that created a backup of the files in Etsy that have changed since I started. I'd probably, if I was doing this in the real world, I would probably want to back up home. I probably want to back up home because I probably have files in home I want. /home. Oh, hey, check that out. That was probably... I backed up home, but I had this sudo shell in there, the source code for that. That probably wasn't something I really need backed up. But either case, it doesn't really matter too much. So if you are doing this on your system, you want to make sure that you know where your data that you need to get is, and then run it. For example, if I had installed MySQL, which I don't think I have yet. If I had installed MySQL, I would want to make sure I backed up the place where MySQL stored the database, which is like userlib something or other. And this is taking forever, and it's not really that important, so I give up. So anyway, that's the method we're going to use in this class to create a system backup. You're just going to back up. You're going to use find and tar to back up the files that have changed in the past so many days.